Hey guys, welcome back to more HOA Reddit stories. In this video, a psycho HOA Karen president set my $70,000 semi-truck on fire because she thought it violated parking rules. The problem? I'm not even part of her homeowner association. Let's dive right into the video. And the title story starts like this. I've owned a small logistics company for the past 15 years, nothing huge, just a few trucks, a couple of local contracts and a yard on the edge of town where I park my rigs. The property is zoned commercial and sits right next to a residential subdivision. It is separated by a chain link fence, a narrow service road and a row of trees. I've never had issues with anyone in that neighborhood until she, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, Karen, showed up. Karen first introduced herself by storming into my lot one afternoon, waving a clipboard right into my face. Not a good impression to make in any kind of situation. Karen said, "You need to move those trucks. They violate HOA regulations." Me, well actually this is my business property, it's not within an HOA. Karen, "That doesn't matter, it's within the HOA sidelines." She went on trying to explain this vague sideline rule that didn't really make any sense, also making sure to add comments about property values. I basically had to escort her back to the sidewalk because I was actually worried about her marching right into my office trailer. I have a way of talking and slowly moving, making the other person also move. I don't think she even realized it until we were on the sidewalk. Either way, over the next few months she became a nuisance, and that's probably the nicest way to say it. She would take photos of my lot, follow my drivers, and even complain to the city about noise pollution. Code enforcement came out twice and confirmed I was 100% compliant with everything. That only seemed to make her angrier. She would stand across the road glaring at my trucks like they had personally offended her. The final straw before everything blew up was when she spotted me parking one of my semis near my house for the weekend. My personal home is on the other side of town in a quiet cul-de-sac. I had brought the rig home because I had an early morning delivery and didn't want to drive across town at 4 AM. It was parked neatly on the curb in front of my own property for less than 12 hours. The next morning, there was a letter taped to my front door, an official-looking HOA violation notice, claiming I owed a $250 fine for prohibited vehicle storage. Just to be clear here, my home was not even in an HOA. I later learned that Karen had drafted the notice herself. I laughed at first, thinking it was just some weird prank on me. I didn't realize how unhinged she actually was. When I confronted her the following day, she doubled down, claiming she was acting on behalf of the greater neighborhood community. She told me to stop bringing eyesores into what she considered her streets. I told her in no uncertain terms to mind her own business and walked away. That is when the harassment really started. After I told her to back off, Karen made it her personal mission to make my life miserable. Every day for the next few weeks, something new happened. One morning I woke up to find anonymous complaints emailed to my business account claiming my trucks were blocking sunlight or releasing toxic fumes. Another day, one of my drivers told me a woman, matching Karen's description, had tried to flag him down in traffic, screaming that he was not allowed to drive on community roads. It was absurd, but the harassment had a chilling edge to it. She started calling the city almost weekly, sometimes reporting me for illegal dumping that was just a flat-out lie, other times claiming we were running unlicensed operations at our business. Every time inspectors showed up, they found nothing wrong, but had to keep coming and taking the situation seriously. One of them that had come multiple times at this point even started joking with me. He was rolling his eyes and asking me if it was the HOA lady again. But then came the social media crusade, so someone, obviously her, started a neighborhood Facebook group thread about my company, calling us a blight on the community. She posted pictures of my trucks from over the fence and wrote captions like, "Would you want to live next to this?" A few other neighbors chimed in, but most of the comments were telling her to relax. That didn't slow her down though, if anything, it fueled her. The final straw came when she tried to have one of my rigs towed. I was doing some quick maintenance in the lot one Saturday morning when a tow truck rolled up. The driver told me her actual name, had called and claimed the truck was abandoned and that raccoons were living in it. I nearly laughed in disbelief, and I showed the guy my registration, business license and deed to the property. Despite not being required to, I even let him look inside to see how clean it was, and there wasn't a giant rodent inside. Maybe except Karen. He looked embarrassed, apologized, and then left. That's when I realized this woman was not just nosy, she was obsessed. I started locking my gate 24/7, added security cameras and told my crew not to engage if she showed up again, and for a short time, things got quiet. I thought maybe she had finally given up, but then one afternoon I came home from work to find her standing in the street again, this time pointing her phone at my parked semi and muttering something under her breath. I asked her if she really had nothing better to do, and she snapped, "You think you're above the rules, but we will see about that." Then she got in her car and sped off. I didn't think too much of it, I figured she was just bluffing like usual. But that night, around 2 AM, I woke up to the unmistakable sound of sirens and I saw an orange glow through my window. My heart sank. My semi-truck parked in front of my home was on fire. I ran outside barefoot, phone in hand, shouting for my neighbors to call 911. The heat hit me like a wall, thick smoke rolling off the hood, flames tearing through the cabin. One of my neighbors from across the street, Tom, was already outside with a garden hose, but it was useless. The fire was just too big. Within minutes, the fire department arrived and managed to douse it, leaving behind a charred skeleton of what had once been a $70,000 truck. The police showed up soon after. The officer asked the usual questions when I had last driven it, if I had seen anyone suspicious, and whether I had security cameras. I pointed to the ones I'd installed a few months ago. He nodded and said that they would need a copy of the footage. The next morning I went through the recordings myself before handing anything over. Around 1:47 AM, the camera caught movement at the edge of the lot. A woman, she was wearing a hoodie, but when she turned towards the flames, the light made her face clear as day. It was Karen. And yeah, I just sat there staring at the screen, equal parts angry and shocked. She had actually done it, all that talk about bylaws and community standards, and now she had crossed into felony territory. I called the detective assigned to the case and told him he might want to come back over. When he saw the footage, his eyebrows shot up, questioning if Karen was my neighbor. I told him that she was, and she was also the person constantly calling the city on me for months. He didn't say much after that, just took notes and asked for a copy of the video. Word spread through the neighborhood fast. People were peeking out their windows as officer walked her out in handcuffs. She saw me standing at the edge of my driveway and started yelling something about how I broke the law first and that the HOA had every right to do what it did, even though it was really just her. The officers ignored her, they put her in the car, and just like that, she was gone. Later that day, the detective called to confirm what I already suspected. They found gas can and a lighter in her trunk, both reeking of accelerant. She had admitted she was just trying to make a point. Seriously, I couldn't help but laugh, not because it was funny or something, but because it was so surreal. All this chaos because I parked a truck on my own property. For the next few days, reporters showed up asking questions. Karen ended up getting charged with arson, property damage, and reckless endangerment. The police said the fire could have easily spread to nearby homes if the wind had shifted just a bit. The DA didn't take kindly to that kind of level of stupidity. I didn't even have to press charges myself. The state took care of that part, but I still filed a suit for damages. My insurance company was cooperative, but the deductible was painful and the replacement cost for the truck was steep, but still, I was not about to eat those losses quietly. Karen's lawyer tried to float some ridiculous story that she acted under emotional distress because my large commercial vehicles were diminishing community value. The judge shut that down before I could even roll my eyes. It turned out she had been warned by the HOA multiple times to stop harassing local businesses. She ignored every single notice, and the HOA board itself tried to distance themselves from her immediately. They put out a half-hearted statement saying that her actions do not reflect the values of our community, which is funny since they had backed every complaint she ever filed against me. When I pointed that out during my civil case, the judge smirked and said, "Duly noted." One older guy admitted she had asked him if he had any gasoline a few days before the fire, and another said that she had bragged that she was gonna teach that truck guy a lesson. It didn't take long before the jury saw through every excuse. Karen was found guilty on all counts. She got 3 years in state prison and had to pay restitution, though I'll probably never see a cent of it. The look on her face when the verdict was read was priceless, like she finally realized her imaginary HOA rules didn't actually apply to the entire county. After the trial, I learned that her house was up for sale within a month. Word was that she couldn't keep up with the HOA fines and legal bills. Poetic justice really, if there was ever any. A few weeks later, I parked my brand new truck right in the same spot as before, but this time nobody said a word. A few of the more decent neighbors even came by to apologize for how she had treated me. And yeah, I was not bitter, just relieved it was finally over. The last time I drove past her old house, the for sale sign had a big red sold sticker across it and someone new was moving in. I hope they like peace and quiet, because after everything that happened, I think the whole neighborhood finally learned that not every rule applies to everyone, especially when you're not even part of their damn HOA. It's been about a year since that whole mess went down, and the scars on the pavement from the fire are gone, but every time I drive past that stretch of road, I still remember how fast everything escalated from petty harassment to full-blown insanity. My business recovered just fine though. Insurance eventually covered most of the loss and I replaced the burned semi with a newer, better one. The fire made for a lot of headaches, sure, but it also ended the constant war I'd been dragged into. No more fake complaints, no more letters taped to my mailbox, and no more HOA inspectors wandering onto my property. The new president of their HOA actually reached out after Karen's conviction, and he said he wanted to start fresh and maintain good relations with nearby property owners. I told him as long as his members stayed on their side of the property line, we would have no problems. He agreed, probably terrified that I would sue them next. And the next one is a fantastic, malicious compliance story that you don't want to miss. It is titled, "Don't Assume I'm a Crook." And by the way guys, if you enjoy the HOA and malicious compliance stories, then please don't forget to like the video and leave me a comment, because that would help me tremendously. Also let me know what kind of stories you enjoy the most and where you are watching from today. So this happened a few years back when I was between jobs. A mini recession was underway and I wanted a who cares job in a high energy environment, so I ended up managing a food stand at the local NHL hockey arena. In the stand there was myself, the stand lead, one head cashier, a cook, a runner, and a number of other cashiers. This company started from the position that all their employees were crooks, sorry to be so blunt, but that was their reality. It was not an unfounded position. Refilling beer cups and pocketing the cash from the sale was not a rare practice. I had two of my cashiers fired after secret shoppers caught them. The trick was to do this with non-inventory items. At the start and end of a night, I counted everything: beer cups, the cardboard triangles on which pizza was served, popcorn bags, bags of potato chips, etc. Bulk items could not be counted though: popcorn, draft beer, nacho chips, etc. At the end of the night, we garbaged the bulk items that cannot be carried over to the next night: cooked hot dogs, pizza slices, popcorn, etc. And we may have wolfed down a few items. "We are closed. I'm gonna toss these 3 leftover slices in the bin. Anyone want one?" I recorded the waste 3 slices, but they may not have all made it into the garbage. Apparently, some suit envisioned that stands might loading up with extra food from the delivery folks or cooking extra hot dogs. Management got their panties in a twist about us eating the garbage and sent a memo that all waste was to be boxed up and carried down to the warehouse, so we did as told. After counting the waste, into the box went a random assortment of pizza slices, hot dogs and popcorn. It wasn't put in neatly. There was lots of popcorn. Management probably didn't care about the popcorn, but the directive was vague, so they got it anyway. The box was stuffed with popcorn. If the warehouse ever did with what was in that box, it could be a fermenting fly-infested mess by the time they got around to opening the boxes. At the after-work beer party, the directive was discussed and none of the stand leads liked the assumptions made regarding our integrity, and they adopted the practice. A month or two later, I had the reason to chat with the warehouse on another topic, and I asked them what they did with all the food waste that was brought down. The answer: "We toss it right into the dumpster, we're not digging through that mess." "You never go in and count anything?" "Nah, the suits tried to make us, but we refused. We already have full-time jobs and they wouldn't hire anyone whose job description was to dig through garbage. It's just the suits trying to intimidate you stand leads." I resumed binning my waste and not lugging anything down to the warehouse. Nobody noticed. I passed a word. Neither we nor the warehouse told management, and the empty suits never noticed. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. The next one is titled, "Psycho Karen attacks army veteran at beach." For the 4th of July, I love going to the beach with my family. For a little background, I am an army veteran, I am married and I have 2 young boys. During my duty, a grenade went off near me and damaged my leg pretty badly. There is not any fancy hospital in that situation, so saving it was not really an option. I got sent back home, honorably discharged, and made a vow to spend as much time with my family as I could. I was fitted for a prosthetic leg, which my 5-year-old son declares as the coolest thing ever. He likes to tell people that his dad is part robot. This year we got to the beach early to try and get a nice spot, and there are some palm trees, and getting a spot under one meant that we got to enjoy the shade it provided. It was hot out and the last thing anybody wanted was a sunburn. While my leg is good for many things, sand is sadly not one of them. It was easier for me once I sat down to just take the leg off and place it next to me. It didn't take 5 minutes before my kids were digging in the sand and wanting me to play with them. It was really starting off to look like a great day, plus it would end in fireworks that, while I don't love, I can handle. My boys seem to adore it. But cue a random woman walking up to us and clearing her throat, in the way that screams, "Pay attention to me, because I'm important." So this woman was very obese, and I'm not shaming anything or anyone, that is important to the story though. She also had 2 kids that seemed around 10ish running around and kicking sand all over people. They were old enough to know that what they were doing was wrong, but to be looked not taught any manners on how to behave. I shall call this woman Karen, despite not really looking like a typical one. Me, can I help you? Karen, you're in my spot. Excuse me? Your spot? That's right, under this tree is where I'm gonna sit with my children. Me, well, we got here first. There are plenty of other spots on the beach. Karen, that is my reserved spot. Just a quick note that this is not a thing in the slightest. This beach and all beaches to my knowledge are first come first serve. If you want a good spot, you can show up early. Me, I highly doubt that. Karen, I'm disabled. My weight qualifies me for special treatment and I need to be in this spot. I am well aware that there are obese people with actual disabilities, and I can also say that I know for a fact that she was not one of them though. First of all, she was not even that big, she could move around perfectly fine while carrying things. She might have had an invisible disability, but even then, there are no disabled spots on the beach. As somebody with only one leg that has a hard time walking in the sand, I would know. Me, I'm disabled too. You don't see me going around trying to steal other people's spots though. That was when she looked closer and saw that I was missing one of my legs. She let out a noise of disgust and said that I should not even be allowed at the beach. I was getting really angry at her, and my wife decided at this point to intervene before I blew up at this lady. She told her that it was the 4th of July and I was a veteran that was actually disabled by fighting for this country. I guess that was the worst thing to say because it just got Karen even angrier for no reason. She started wailing that I was a murderer and the worst kind of person in the world. I don't want to type out her entire rant because of its length and hurtful content, but I will summarize it for you. She said that she was a pacifist and against war and the military because of it. That me being part of the system made me a murderer and a communist. I think she was just spouting random stuff, but whatever, that I should not even be allowed at this kind of holiday or at the beach, showing off my so-called disgusting leg. I have to comment that I find this hilarious considering what holiday we are celebrating. For those not in the US, the 4th of July celebrates our independence from Great Britain. You know, a war fighting. I have no idea what she thought the holiday was about because I never actually got a rebuttal against this woman. After her long-winded rant, she decided to get physical with me. Again, totally not what a pacifist against violence would do. However, this Karen was a complete psycho. She lunged at me and started trying to hit and smack me as I used my arms to hold her off. And then my wife got behind her and started to try and pry her off of me. I was not going to get hurt, but I think Karen realized she would not win a physical fight with me and then decided to play dirty with another tactic instead. She must have just spotted my prosthetic leg and grabbed it before shoving my wife into the sand. She was okay but dazed and could not do anything about Karen running as fast as she could towards the water. I yelled for help, saying that Karen had stolen my leg, getting the attention of a lifeguard. Now we had a lifeguard chasing an obese Karen who was running towards the ocean. She got there first and proceeded to throw my leg as far as she could into the water, the lifeguard running in and getting it before it got lost. He brought it back to me and Karen was following him, now yelling again about stealing her leg and discriminating against her for being disabled. I was so close to exploding like a volcano at her, but the lifeguard beat me to it. Lifeguard, you have to leave right now. Karen, who the hell do you think you are? You cannot tell me what to do. Lifeguard, I'm the head lifeguard and at this beach we have rules. Even ignoring your actions, I've gotten a dozen complaints about your kids kicking sand at people and stealing off blankets. You have only been here half an hour and are not staying one more minute. Karen, you cannot kick me out, I'm disabled. Lifeguard, yeah, and I would bet anything that the car parked in the handicapped spot without any kind of placard is yours, right? You can leave now, or I can call the police and tell them what you've been doing here. I bet they would love to arrest somebody trying to steal a prosthetic off a veteran on Independence Day. I guess Karen was scared about the police because she gathered her children quickly and started going to the parking lot. The lifeguard yelling that the kids had to drop the stuff they stole, which they then actually did. Before Karen could escape in the car, the police arrived and I told them exactly what happened, and the lifeguard corroborated my statements. I ended up pressing charges on Karen because I would not let her get away with this. Long story short, Karen ended up behind bars, which is exactly where she belongs. And yeah, Ripe stars, I gotta say, I would have been so angry if Karen got away with this BS, especially on the 4th of July, which is really a big deal in America, obviously. This especially is not the day where you should attack veterans. Obviously, there's no good day to ever do this, but especially on this day, this was probably one of the dumbest things Karen could have done in her life. And the next one is a fantastic petty revenge story that is titled "Neighbors did not give a damn about my sick dad, so I did not give a damn about their renovation." So I'm a silent lurker in the subreddit and I thought I'd share a small story of mine. So my parents and I live right next to each other in a small neighborhood in Germany. One of our neighbors is doing a big renovation on his house and has workers and trailers all over the street the whole day. That's not really a problem. Me and my dad also told them it's no problem for them to use our driveways for the trailers, wagons at daytimes when we are gone, just so he can keep the street clear. Now the issue is my dad, 72, got diagnosed with renal colic and needed surgery. Everything went good, but he's not that mobile at the moment and he needs to use his car a lot. Normally he goes by bike or just walks. So I went over to our neighbor and told him my dad needs his spot regularly for the foreseeable future and he cannot put his trailer there anymore. Everything seemed good and he understood it. Well, sadly, it only took him 3 days until he put his empty trailer back on my dad's driveway when he was out of the house, and 2 days later he didn't even remove it for the night. Maybe I should have tried to speak to our neighbor again, but I didn't. My friends and family say I have a short fuse and get mad really fast at unimportant stuff. That might be true, but I just cannot stand BS and ignorant people when it's regarding simple stuff like please stop blocking my sick dad's driveway. So then by the second time I came home from work and saw that empty trailer again blocking my dad's driveway, I waited for the night to see if he moves, and he didn't. So at 1 AM I got up, walked over to my dad's driveway, removed the brake from the trailer and just pulled it out of the driveway and started walking down the street out into the fields with it. We live right at the border of the city to the surrounding wheat fields. Pulled that trailer around a mile into the fields, easy to spot for everyone who's walking or driving by. That's now 3 weeks ago, and since then my dad's driveway never had a trailer on it again. And yeah guys, thank you for watching, I will see you again tomorrow.